One of the things that I love about this watch world, or this watch enthusiasm, this shared passion that we have, is that we can make personal connections. Personal connections with a focus on a shared interest, like watches. And as I've gone down this journey of watches, I've made some really good friends who are also passionate about watches. And a lot of these friends tend to like Rolex. I'm not a big Rolex guy myself, but I understand why people are. But what has really surprised me is how many of these people that love Rolex, who own Rolex, also own a watch from Junod. Hello, you're watching James. My name's James, you're watching me, and I am talking about watches, and I'm talking about one of the best made watches for the money that I have ever come across. And I'm not the only one to think that, because as I said, I actually know multiple people that own these watches. Own these watches when they also own the watches that they are sort of taking inspiration from. Yes, the Junod watches are definitely Rolex inspired. They are taking inspiration, they're taking designs from them, but they are thinking about them in a different way. They're thinking about a different way that I actually really like. Yes, you're going to call this a homage watch because it, I guess, is, but it's not an exact replica. It's not even a sort of a best of watch. This silent service, in fact, is the sort of inspiration comes from one of the historic Rolex brands. And the watchmakers that made this watch have thought, well, what if Rolex still made this watch? What would that watch look like? How would it present? How would it feel on wrist? What would it feel like to own one of these now? Well, they've answered that question by providing the silent service. This is a modern version of a watch that doesn't exist anymore, which gives people who love Rolex and people that don't like Rolex very much the opportunity to own something that might be a little bit special. Because it's funnily enough that although I'm not a big Rolex fan, I've got nothing specifically against them, but they're just not the designs that I particularly connect with. One of the only Rolex models that I particularly like is the Milsub, something that obviously is not made anymore, and certainly if you wanted to buy a vintage version of it, they cost way too much money. But this silent service is a modern day version of that watch, or at least it's the interpretation by Junod of what it would look like if it was made today. And what I do like also about this watch is just how much thought, effort, and time has been put into it. Because this is not a watch brand that has made up a design and then shipped it off to a third party to have it produced. No, they've really sat down and made this watch themselves. They've created this watch, they put their own time and energy into it as experienced watchmakers to produce these amazing watches. Which is why I think these watches are so good. They have got that hands-on touch by the people that are making these watches, and you can feel it. And now I want to show that to you. So let's flip the camera and let me show you in as much detail as I can why I think this watch is just so good. Having this amount of time with this Junod silent service has really confirmed to me just how good this watch is. The quality, the style, the fit, the finish, everything about it is exceptional. But you get some stuff with it, like this branded polishing cloth. You get a 1-year limited warranty, and it's specified specifically to you. And the watch movements themselves are measured over 6 weeks and adjusted by the watchmakers that actually sell you this watch direct. And one of the things that stands out to me when I first look at this watch is that black dial. It has this lovely inky look to it. So it doesn't then surprise me that they've used an enamel dial on this. Enamel gives it that real depth of color or lack of color, and it's the right choice. And I think that is a theme about this watch as we go through it, is the right choices that are used, the right choices that are made to create a really good watch. So the majority of what's on the dial is printed, and there's quite a few lines of text, and most of that is in white, except for the word silent service, which is in red, which I do like because it gives a bit of a flash of red, but it also is nice because it then links with that Junod red second hand. The hands and those applied markers do match in nicely, both the shapes of them, but also they're both applied and silver and polished and full of a heap of lume. For all of you out there that love lume on your watches, this is one that will not disappoint you. I can tell you that it is nice and bright, and it lasts and lasts. It's actually quite amazing to see this one glowing hours after it's actually had a bit of sunlight on it. Now you can order this one with or without a date. There are some specifics you can order when you're ordering one of these watches. This obviously have a date window, and sometimes I would think, well, it'd be nice if that was color matched. But then when I think about this particular watch, it then balances out that applied marker a bit. So if it was black, well, maybe that would feel a little bit odd. So I'm not sure if I prefer it color matched or prefer it non-color matched for this particular watch. Now it's covered by a flat piece of sapphire crystal with plenty of AR coating as well. It's one of those pieces of crystal that it's almost impossible to see. It kind of disappears. And I can confirm that it is a piece of sapphire crystal, a nice strong reading there. And this particular one has a sapphire crystal bezel insert. Look how strong that reading is. And underneath that crystal on that bezel insert, as you saw, was plenty of lume, but it's also a nice black too that matches in nicely with the dial. And it has a really interesting effect cut into the grip of the bezel. I'm not even sure what shape that is or what you call that, but what I can say is that it's almost like a light catcher. So I'm going to call it the light catching bezel grip insert surround something. I don't know. I don't think that's going to catch on, but what I can say is it's very pretty and has one of the nicest bezel actions I've experienced. In fact, the only other bezel action that I think I prefer is my Tudor Black Bay 58. The interesting part about this is when you move it, it has a nice resistance, but it's very soft, but you don't really feel the clicking. But the clicking noise is very much present. And you know it's going to fit nicely to wrists when it has a case diameter of 40 millimeters. The bezel actually sticks out just a tiny bit, so it goes out to 40.5 millimeters. It's 12 millimeters tall. It has a lug to lug of 47.4, but it does have male end links, making it 50.6. But they do curve down considerably, so that doesn't really affect the on-wrist experience. The lugs are 20 millimeters, but there's a dramatic taper down to 15.4 millimeters. And sized for my 17 centimeter wrist, it comes in at 140.8 grams. Now that dial presents really well, the markers present very well, the hands present very well, the bezel presents very well, and then the case continues to present well too. A little bit of brushing on the tops of those lugs, and the brushing is very, very good. Polishing on the side, as you can see though, it does collect a little bit of fingerprints, and it has an unguarded crown with that Jeannot sort of flower on the crown there. Now that unguarded crown gives you 300 meters of water resistance, which means of course it is a screw down crown. And containing that SW200 means that it does have hand widening as well. And of course it does have hacking. It's always interesting to see movements on time graphers, seeing how they are performing, especially when they've been adjusted. So let's see how this one is performing on my time grapher. So as we would expect, it's running at 28,800 vibrations per hour, making it a high beat movement. No beat error whatsoever, nice healthy amplitude, and running at plus 4 seconds. I'm very happy with those figures. So for me personally, something that elevates a watch from being a really good watch to being something that's absolutely incredible to feel and have in hand and wear on the wrist is the bracelet, because the head of this watch is fantastic. There is everything about it that I can see, feel, look at, stands out as absolutely amazing. And the bracelet, it continues this, and it really does make a big difference to the overall feel of this watch. All brushed, solid end links as you would expect, polished on the sides, screw links too, and it has this gliding style clasp. Now of course we kind of expect this because of the design of the watch, but all milled inside. As you can see, there's a fair amount of adjustment there, so you can have a very nice then fit on wrist. So that is your micro adjustment, but also your on the fly adjustment. Not really much to say about that screw down case back. Yep, that's the screw down case back. And I don't think anybody is going to be surprised with the quality, the feel, the taper of that bracelet, and the dimensions of this watch, but it fits beautifully on my 17 centimeter wrist. Yep, there's nothing to complain about the on-wrist experience about this one. Legibility is also fantastic, and it just feels nice. Yeah, it really does feel nice. And I think a lot of that has to do with this really nice quality bracelet and that taper. But of course, it just looks good as well. So it's a nice watch to have on wrist. There's very little to complain about with this watch. In fact, the only thing I can think of to complain about Junod, or this watch in particular, is that they don't have enough models available. I understand why they've only got a couple of models in their range available, but I'd love them to branch out and make even more watches. Not that they've got time to do that because they are working hard just producing these watches, but you think you're going to need to enjoy this as style of watch. You know, I'm not a huge Rolex fan. However, the one Rolex that I would want to own is the Milsub, which of course is not available anymore because they don't make it. Plus the ones that are available are stupidly expensive. So this is the modern interpretation of that. So if I was going to own a Rolex, well, I wouldn't. I would own this one. Now, if you want to buy one of these watches, they range a little bit in price depending on what you choose, because you get to custom choose what you want, with or without date, different sort of bezels on things. And once you place your order, it is then custom made for you for that order. But depending on what you sort of buy, it's going to range between around about $1,500 US up to about $1,800 US. You place that order, it then gets assembled for you. It's sent out to you. And that price, that range of prices triggers something in me, because when I hold this watch, I just can't believe that it only costs this amount of money. In fact, I don't think I've actually experienced a watch that gives you so much for the money. Not to say that this is an affordable watch, it's not, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not saying this is a budget watch or an amazing spec monster for the price. What I'm saying is, this is a watch that you get a lot for your money. And it makes me think of a couple of other watches as well. It makes me think of my Christopher Ward, and it makes me think of my Tudor, because Christopher Ward for me as well also has a similar feel. I feel like you get a lot of watch for your money. But the Junod, it's better than the Christopher Ward. Now, style aside, I'm not talking about the design, I'm talking about the quality. When I put it side by side with my Tudor, which is a lot more expensive, it actually comes close to the quality of the Tudor. I don't think it quite reaches the Tudor, but when you think about the quality and coming close to it, and the price differences and the ranges between these watches, it surprises me. If you like this style of watch, if you enjoy these variations that Junod offers, then they should really be a company that you should check out. And I want to say thank you to Junod for lending me this watch. This is not a sponsored video. They have no input on the video. All they said is, here's one of our watches. We stand by this product. We believe it's a good product. You can have it for a long-term loan, wear it, enjoy it, and share your comments with your viewers. And that says something about this company. They put a lot of hours into making these watches. They're actually watchmakers that put these watches together. They are the guys that own this company. They get hands-on with these watches. They get hands-on with the movements. They do so much. They are so passionate about the watches that they also then stand by their watches. So that is absolutely fantastic to see. And it's something a little bit different. And I like things which they're a little bit different. And I like when a lot of effort and time has been put into something, because it does then show and it translates into this watch. So thank you very much to Junod. And I'm going to be a little bit sad to then send this one back. Thanks guys for watching. Maybe check these videos out next.